I think it was in the pandemic that I began watching a documentary of sorts on farming in Scotland and northern Britain. Each season, I think there were 4 seasons, each season followed several families through a year of farming. Coming from western Kansas, I was looking for row crops and pivot irrigation, but there was none. Primarily beef, along with lots of sheep. What was most striking for me and most engaging was the scenery. There's your herd of sheep pasturing as the waves from the ocean crashed against the cliffs. Or you let your sheep roam for months at a time, then you get your sheepdogs go way up into the mountains to these dangerous places to bring them in. It was extraordinary. I was thinking, I wonder if they need a priest up there. Farming was deeply embedded in their identity. It's in your blood, one of them said. If it's not, you'll never make it. If it is, well, you don't want to do anything else. Farmers know this. It reminded me of my dad, who farmed for about 30 years. But like the effect of superstores like Walmart have had on smaller ones, so large corporate farms have had on small family farms, drastically reducing their numbers, pushing them out just so we can have the cheapest product possible. But Dad said he could see what was coming, so before he was forced out, he said he would get out. It wasn't easy for him, to say the least. But I've always admired his ability to let go of something tied so closely to his identity and struggle to embrace something quite different, real estate in his case. You know, Jesus' prediction of the temple's destruction elsewhere in the Gospels and his actions in the temple in today's would have been profoundly unsettling for his fellow Jews. The temple was a place where God was understood to live and rule in the midst of his covenant people. It was through the temple's sacrificial system that God lived in grace, forgiving his people, restoring them, cleansing them, and reintegrating them into his covenant people. This is why after healing people, Jesus would sometimes say, "Go show yourself to the priest and offer what Moses prescribed. That will be proof enough for them." Proof that God had acted and was reintegrating them in the way given to them, at least to that point. Now, unlike the divisions that we have between the spheres of religion, the nation, the government, the economic and financial systems, in Israel they were all rolled into one, and the temple was the visible sign where they met. It was the heart of Judaism, supplying the living and healing presence of God to all the members of the body, wherever they may be. I mean, the very size of the temple spoke of its importance, spreading to occupy nearly 25% of Jerusalem. A comparable structure built to scale in Emporia, which is 12 square miles, would occupy nearly 3 square miles. And what did Jesus do? Do you see all those pretty stones? Not one will be left on top of another. They'll all be thrown down. And by driving out the money changers and the animals, he was removing elements essential to the temple's functioning. It would be kind of like going to a bank and getting rid of all the ways they make financial transactions. You'd be saying, what you've been doing, you will no longer do. And what you've understood this bank to be, it no longer is. That's what Jesus' acts of forgiveness and healing indicated. What you used to seek at the temple, you will find in me. The temple has served its purpose of pointing to this new temple of my body. I mean, think about what this would mean. Think about the radical change he was initiating, how it penetrated every level of the people's lives and identities. Reimagine who you are from top to bottom, Jesus was telling them in so many ways. But it's no wonder he was considered a revolutionary and that many wanted to kill him. Think how hard it is for us just to change just a little. It would seem like everything you needed to live aside from your house was going to change in an absolutely unforeseen way, almost as though everything but your house was going to be destroyed. But notice that Jesus wasn't tearing down identities for the sake of tearing them down, like an anarchist, or even like a revolutionary who was going to rebuild the temple only in a more grand and marvelous way and in just 3 days. No, Jesus was replacing something which could perish and did, the temple, with something not even death could destroy. He was exchanging the temple in which God's presence had long ago been driven out with a body in which his renewed people could eternally dwell with God. Jesus was abolishing all animal sacrifices used for worship and instituting a new form of worship in which the person herself is offered, like Jesus was, to make all things new. He was asking a heck of a lot of his listeners, but he was providing the only stable ground on which human identity can be built. For everything else, one day, will fail. Friends, Jesus continues to do this in ways large and small. Sometimes it's by allowing us to hit rock bottom, to finally see the logic of his ways. Sometimes it happens in a moment of vulnerability when we can't hide from our own selfishness, haughtiness, egoism. Those moments where you see, oh my gosh, I'm ugly. Sometimes it's allowing us to be obsessed with politics and find that we ride the waves and are often anxious and afraid and angry. Sometimes it's with illness. Sometimes it occurs with the rejection of a friend, when we feel alone, isolated, unpopular, when our hopes are dashed or our job is lost, even with the onset of old age and its limitations, or the loss of a loved one. The struggle may stem from poor choices or from things not our fault. In every situation and circumstance, God mysteriously maintains his providence and never ceases to encourage us to allow his Son to exchange what is perishable with what is eternal, what is superficial with what is substantial. The human nature Christ would not trust with the nature, in a sense, already raised from the dead. Don't doubt that God is at work when you're brought low and frightened. It seems to be those moments most especially when he's refashioning you and making you new.